Approval of the petition for voluntary termination of Gateway to College Academy Charter contract.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Item 8 is asking the board to approve the request for early termination of the Gateway to College charter contract. Gateway to College is a charter school serving grades 10 to 12 at Georgia Perimeter College. The school's innovation was implemented to engage at-risk students in a quasi-high school and college setting in which students could potentially gain college credits while completing their high school diploma. Gateway charter contract term ends on June 30th of 2016. In lieu of submitting a renewal petition, Georgia Perimeter College leaders have requested to the district and Georgia Department of Education to terminate the charter contract at the end of this fiscal year. Gateway wants to terminate the charter for the following reasons. The school is unable to comply with the new state board rules and regulations approved on November the 6th, 2014 regarding governance autonomy. And for the entire charter term, the school has failed to meet its academic performance goals and has not been able to meet and exceed district and state test scores. The charter office, student support department, and curriculum and instruction began collaborating with Gateway in late fall to implement a closure plan and ensure that each student has a healthy transition to a DeKalb school, with each student receiving individualized planning. It is estimated that at least 47 Gateway students will potentially transfer to a DeKalb school location. There will be no additional cost associated with this agenda item. Mr. Chairman, subject to any questions you or the board may have, I recommend item 8 to be placed on tonight's consent agenda.
Is there any discussion? Mrs. Turner?
That's all.
Ms.
Yes.
Turner?
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Bolzer. I reviewed the materials here, and I have a few questions. Am I correct that the Gateway, the program, is 10 years old?
That is correct.
And then what I hear you saying is for the entire charter term, 10 years, it has failed to meet its academic performance goals.
For the last 5 years of the charter contract.
5 years, okay. So it took us 5 years to make a decision to do something. Is that correct?
I would say that, Ms. Turner, yes.
Can I ask you why?
I do not know why. We assumed this position a year and a half ago.
Okay.
And so we have been visiting our schools, each of our charter schools. We're developing, because of that very same thing, we're developing a monitoring for accountability process that we have almost completed that to roll out for this fall, because we were finding some discrepancies of how charters have been managed by the district.
If I look at the premise for starting the school was for at-risk students, and based on what the information here, and I am concerned about 47 students that were already determined to be at risk, and then they are being now, for lack of a better term, mainstreamed back to their home school, which the whole premise of this is to have them out of that environment. And now, because of the failure of someone or something, we put them back into an environment that continues to foster at risk. Am I correct in that assessment?
So I would look at that through a different lens. Okay. And one of the reasons why we began planning with Gateway very early on, even when they were talking about a renewal, was to establish a very clear process of what that transition was going to look like for those students to ensure some level of success. And so we've had meetings with the families and the students themselves. We have assigned DeKalb counselors. Dr. Tinsley and Ms. Stepney have also been involved in reviewing their individual plans for each of the students, looking at what credits they have achieved, what credits they still need, and what options do we have at Elizabeth Andrews High School. And so now it's left up to the students to take on that challenge of returning to the school district. That, of course, is up to each individual student, because in some cases they're older than 18, and so they have to make their own choices in that matter.
I guess I'm just concerned. I guess I'm just concerned with our graduation rate the way it is, and these students falling through the cracks and not accomplishing what it is we desire, and that is successfully completing school. I'm just a little bit concerned about that, going back, and maybe through no fault of their own, because it's not their fault that the system failed them or didn't work. That may be a strong word to say failed them. I'm just concerned that they won't fall through the cracks. But if we say we have things put in place and we're going to track their enrollment and their timelines, then I feel a little bit better.
Sorry about that, Ms. Turner. The charter office has looked at tracking them as a cohort group that's coming back to the district to see how they do perform within our traditional DeKalb schools and continuing to provide them support. One of the things that we noticed when we were looking at their transcripts is that they were taking the same course over and over again and being unsuccessful. And so we want to make sure that they're successful when they take it again to be able to reach the next level of their credits.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Boza, I see one of the references here, and I know this was a startup charter, is that one of their concerns was their ability to comply with the rules governing autonomy, which seems mindful of our last discussion in terms of the Chambly Charter. And I think it would be helpful for the board to get a more thorough analysis of these evolving, at least as you see them, evolving rules on autonomy and the baseline for what the expectations of the state are with regard to autonomy for both startup and conversion charters. I know you referenced, and I won't hold you to the language about rules and regulations for the state, but if they are in fact rules and regulations of the state, then they have some governing authority over us as opposed to guidelines from the state. And I think that very issue has injected some confusion at a minimum into the conversations we've had about autonomy and charters. And I think both through your office and perhaps through legal counsel, I think we need a more thorough analysis of this because as we've heard it referenced here, there appears to be at a minimum a desire, if not more, from the state about granting autonomous decision-making to charters as a whole. And I think for us to ultimately be effective decision makers at the policy level, we're going to need to have a better grounding in terms of what the rules are as opposed to just the guideposts.
No, Dr. Irwin?
Thank you, Dr. Bose. A quick question. At the Gateway to College Charter School, who were the instructors? Were they actual certified teachers or were they professors at, was it at Perimeter?
Yes, sir. Georgia Perimeter College, they were the professors there, yes.
So I'm kind of, I'm not confused, but kind of shocked that we have at-risk kids have been educated by college professors who are not certified to teach. And I am a college professor, so I'm not saying that we can't teach. But it's a different, kind of a different level of instruction. So I'm trying to figure out how you entrusted at-risk kids to a professorial level of education.
So it's very similar to what's happening right now with DECA, which is a kind of a hybrid model where the students are in a compacted curriculum for the first 2 years of high school, and then they go and receive credit while in college.
Right.
And then they complete high school simultaneously, and it's serving both. So this is very similar curriculum. Those teachers, we have to make sure that we offer coursework that serves both purposes of them being able to kind of move forward and ahead. The professors there, really they're all staff from Georgia Perimeter College, which is one of the things that Mr. Orson has brought up in terms of the governance autonomy. They've not been able to create a separate governing body for the school, which means that they can no longer comply with the requirements.
And I can understand Mr. Orson's point about the governance, but mine is back to the instruction. If you're talking about DECA, DECA has certified teachers in that program, right? Mm-hmm. So why would we not have certified teachers in this program? I guess that's the point that I'm making. If you're at risk and you're having problems in a traditional setting, why would you have a college professor teach you if you're having problems at a lower level, so to speak. That's why I'm called.
Yeah, and I do not know the original, how this
Right, I'm just
was
wondering-
all conceived. I do know, Dr. Irwin, that the original formation of this academy was related to the Gates Foundation,
Right.
which is another reason why they have to come out of it. They can no longer use that
Right.
verbiage. And so, and again, it was pulling on those students who were not successful. They had really dropped out of our school district, and they were picking them up and then providing some levels of intervention to really get them through that curriculum.
But this is my last point. I'm not going to keep kicking this dead horse. I guess, and you've only been observing the situation for the past year and a half or so, right?
That is correct.
I just got stuck on when you said they kept taking the same courses over and over and failing them. That it might have had something to do with how the instruction was put out there. At some point, somebody would have looked at that.
It left us with some areas that we need to be very mindful of
Yeah.
in this monitoring for accountability, and it's the tracking of the performance of the students to that level is going to become very critical.
Yeah, I understand that. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a representative here. Mr. Superintendent,
Yes, and by the way, we have a great relationship with Georgia Perimeter, and one of I want to hear from representatives from Gateway first.
Good afternoon, board members. Thank
Good
you for
afternoon.
allowing me the opportunity to speak to you briefly. I'm Gina Gavin, and I'm the Director of Early College Programs for Georgia Perimeter College, which includes Gateway and DECA. Gateway does have certified teachers on staff. Our motto was to reclaim students that had dropped out of traditional high school or were not being successful while attending high school. Those students are brought to the college campus, and for the first semester that they're enrolled, they take English, math, reading, literature, college survival courses from certified instructors. So we actually have a Gateway staff of certified instructors and counselors that serve our students for the duration. But the model of this program is that after they successfully complete that first semester, they are transitioned into college and they become college students, and they do take college courses with professors. We have a number of interventions in place to support those students, and we have had student success. But when we considered the guidelines or the rules that were being placed forward, it was necessary that we make a real decision about how best to serve the students that fall into our population and what would be best moving forward. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Superintendent, and thank you very much. No further questions. Is there any opposition to placing this item on the consent agenda for this evening? Thank you. This item will be placed on the consent agenda for this evening. Number 9, purchase of Title I summer reading resources from Scholastic Incorporated.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
before our friends from Georgia Perimeter leave, we want to thank you so much for the partnership. DECA is the best dual accrediting program anywhere in the state, in the nation. One of the realities of the charter movement is that sometimes it's an experiment, and it's an experiment that doesn't always work as is often envisioned, but that is the whole essence of it. And so when we grant charters for 5 years, the district doesn't have a lot of oversight over what happens after that. So let this be a cautionary lesson for all of us too, as we continue to go forward. But beyond that, we just want to thank you so much for all you've done and are doing, and we appreciate the partnership. And thank you for being here, and we'll continue to work together.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.